My name is Nick B, and let's jump into the futures overview. So, starting with our fundamentals for the week, on Tuesday, we have basically the housing price index coming out at 9 a.m. At 10, we have CB consumer confidence and JOLTS job openings. Wednesday, we have non-farm employment change, preliminary GDP at 8:15, 8:30 a.m. Then at 10, no, not really. Thursday, 8:30 a.m., we have core PCE price index, and then we have unemployment claims. And then Friday, ultimately at 8:30 a.m., we have NFP non-farm payrolls, as well as at 10 a.m. we have ISM manufacturing PMI. So it could be a pretty decent week. We might get a little bit better volume than we did last week, maybe, but still. We're going to take a look at the S&P 500 ES right now in NQ, and we're going to kind of dissect what's really been going on. It's been a really tough zone to trade through. Um, and let me just start from the top. So let me clear drawing set. Yeah. Okay. And let's start with kind of the main pointers. So we're starting with the 2-year daily. Let's go ahead and get our SNRs. As always, I have to mark off the all-time high. It's just a habit of mine, right? And then the main points that's been sticking out to us: 4630, which is right here, this previous lower high. And then we have 4327, 4325, right here. So currently, we're basically just lodged between the channel of 4325 and 4630. Everything that's going on here in between is not going to give us any continuation of direction. It's just kind of, I guess we're figuring out what we want to do in here as we're carving out some intraday support and resistance levels that we'll have to start breaking down on the smaller time frame to really see if it's worth it to take some of these swings. The last 3 weeks, not really the last 2 weeks, but from trying to time any of the swings in between the channels and the lower time frames, it's been pretty difficult. I tried to go long last week. This was pretty ballsy, above 15,000. Oh, oof. Thinking about NQ, but on ES personally, I did like to go above 4410. I went long, and we were just coming up on 4500. My mistake was not, taking the profits there as price started to reverse into Friday, and then we started to get that sell off. And now we're opening somewhat green. We're still above supports. We're still above, 4370, which was this previous higher low here. That's important. These higher lows, the only one we're not even below 4400 on this previous higher low anymore, at least. So we're going to break this down on the hourly real quick, but let me bring your focus down to specifically between 4500 and 4327. We're going to start dissecting again. Again, mind you, we are in between 4325 and 4630. Everything that's going on in between kind of, I want to say, doesn't matter because it's not really giving us direction. Clearly, it's not giving us direction. So if we break below 4325, let's go with the easy direction here because we're closer to 4325. Let's say we do break 4325. Yes, all day this is a short. We can start looking at shorting the rips up. Definitely targeting 4200 as the first take profit to the downside. You could see how congested price has been here in the past, so that would make a pretty good first target to the downside. I'm not going to keep covering the downside because, again, somewhere deep in my heart, I don't think we start breaking down. You think things until they start happening. So until we break down 4325 on the hourly, I'm really just only going to be focusing on 4200 as the first downside target. In terms of upside, it becomes a little bit more intricate, I guess. I guess we just got to watch for the main level. So we know for a fact 4370 has some weight to it. For a fact, we know that. And what definitely confirms that to us is the fact that not one candle closed below 4370 and bounced off. If anything, we just bounced off the 100-day EMA on the daily, which is great. But again, this isn't really confident here. Again, I'm also going to mark off 4500 because that really is the true current channel that we are in between of 4370 and 4500. So now we're narrowing it down from, instead of, waiting for 4630 or 4325 to break down, we're narrowing it down to now these intraday levels of 4370, and then we have the 4500 area. Let me actually adjust this. I'm also going to make this a different color because What this level essentially will tell me is it's going to be a navigation level. And when I say navigation level, meaning if we get above 4,500, most likely we'll have confidence to keep going towards 4,550 possibly, and then 4,600, work our way towards 4,600. 4,630, and then we'll go from there. If we can't get above 4,500, most likely either one of two things are going to happen. Either we're going to sell back down towards 4370 and either keep chopping around in this channel here until either or breaks, or we're going to finally come down to 4370, break that, make our way below the 100-day EMA on the daily, and as well as break below 4325. That's going to be kind of definitely the green light to go long. Anything you try to do in between here, because I've tried to do it and it hasn't really worked, it's just you're going on a whim. Anything that you have going on over here, you're just going on a whim. It's really not worth it. It's really tough to time those swings clearly because of also signal wise on for futures. We took two L's on NQ, and I mean, like I look back at it, it shouldn't have happened. We should have been quicker on that, but that's okay. We live and learn, we solidify, right? So we know now that for a fact we're really between 4370 and 4500. So in order for us to get any kind of sense of direction, one of these two levels have to break out or break down first. So also, I do like the fact that we're above this previous higher low of 4410 basically. And if we can stay above that, again, that's just going to give us confidence to go to 4500. But I don't think I'm going to get tricked like the last 2 weeks that I have, thinking that just because we're above these intraday SNR levels that we get that direction for the time being, and maybe we use momentum to capitalize, let's say, for a move to the upside. So let's say as long as we hold above 4410, my thought process is telling me don't try to ride it out towards 4500, even though that is kind of the clear and only resistance level that's coming up. Um, as long as we're above 4410 and 4370, which is essentially holding this entire move to the upside along with 4327. So, to really make a long story short, I'm not very interested in doing anything between 4370 and 4500. Maybe above 4500, if we can get a solid break on the hourly above that level, we could possibly use momentum to maybe target 45.50, a quick 50 points, maybe even 40, 50 points on the ES, maybe risk 20 points to the downside, put a stop loss around, I want to say 44.80 probably, and then target 45.50, excuse me. And maybe that would be a solid run, but again, just keep in the back of your mind that this is as long as we're between 43.25 and 46.30, this is a wishy-washy area. If we try to time the swings in between here, I would say it's at your own discretion. It's not advised because it just hasn't been working out unless you're also quick with it. If you're a scalper, true hard scalper, you could sit on the 15-minute, 5-minute and get those pinpoint entries and exits out. Good on you. But I'm not going to head down that route because it starts messing with my head, at least. It starts messing with my mental, and we want this to be sustainable. So again, I think the safer route maybe would be above 4500. We could target 4550, then above 4550 for a fact, we're going to be going towards 4600, and then from 4600 to 4630, we'll see what we get. But again, anything in between here, funny money territory. And let me go straight to, I guess let's go to the 4 hour. So again, right, you have this higher low here. We could mark it off, right? Let me make it a different color as well. 4410. Okay, so again, this looks messy. I mean, we clearly just know that the channel that we're really in between is 4370 again and 4500. Everything in between, I don't know. I'm not too keen on doing anything in between here. I know there's possibly some sentiment that maybe we might come up to 45, 60 again, maybe sell back down, maybe. Maybe we come up to 44.40 again and sell back down, maybe. I like that we're at 44.20. That's good. But again, we have to see what the Monday's open is going to bring to us, and as well as keep in mind all the binary events ahead that we have for this week. Do we get above 4,500 or do we finally get the green light to start selling this move down? We're maybe gonna find out this week. So that's as far as I'm gonna go with ES. I mean, on the 4 hour, even if we break it down to the 1 hour again, there's just these inconsistencies. Again, you can try to scalp these moves, right? Like for example, if you got above 44.10, a good long entry would have been above 44.10, and you would have been targeting 44.40 to be safe. And the reason I say 44.40 is because you have some rejection here. You have supply and demand here. You have supply and demand here previously, as well as 44.40 was a pretty solid intraday support and resistance level, because the fact is ES likes to move 20-point increments throughout the day. So that's perfect, especially now that we're holding above 44.20. It could give us some room to 44.40. But again, that's you age quicker when you trade like that, I feel like. So I'm just personally going to stay away from that. I want clearness. I want precision. I'm tired of like these fake out moves in between. I really want to see some action go down. But as long as we're in between these channels, I mean, I wouldn't. I've got, what do we call it? What's a good word? I got discouraged basically to attempt to risk it for the biscuit in these areas here. So again, and you can see right above 4,500 how price holds up here. Yeah, we had a fake out here at 44.80, and then we bounced 44. Again, similar 44.80, somewhat bounced, and but again these moves never held, and it was a funny money area, funny money channel that we were painting to the downside here, a bear channel essentially. So it wouldn't be really good to catch a bounce unless again you're scalping. So like for example, you come down to 4,500 here. This would have been a nice scalp possibly towards 44, 45.40. Well, right here you could see how this supply and demand zone, because we started to kind of hang around this area here with these candles. What's that at 40, 45.30? Yeah, you could have scalped from 4,500 30 points. Again, if that's your thing, go for it. But, we want a little more precision. So, again, above 4,500 intraday, right? Because I did say it was going to get a little bit funny once we start breaking it down to the smaller time frames, because again, the big time frames, they can't really show you what's going on the intraday. But again, the big picture is it looks like it tells us that above 4,500, well, really 4,550, because supply and demand started building around here. 4,550, that would be the first target level. But let's break it down back to the hourly and take a look at some of the inconsistencies here. Now, the first inconsistency above 4,500, well, it's not really an inconsistency, but the first level that kind of might stump price is going to be at 45.17. If we can get above 45.17, yep, we're pretty much going to start aiming for 45.40, this area here again. Above 45.40, I could see us going for 45.60. Above 45.60, we'll probably be making our way up towards here, towards 45.90, 4600 area. We have a gap to fill here as well, looks like. Yep, we have a gap to fill to the upside. Um, Oops. Come on. And then once we get above 4,600, again, we can target 4,630. But again, see how much of a fight we have to go through to like get that confirmation. Because keep in mind, as we are, let's say, like hypothetically to the upside, as we are taking over 45.20, 45.17, or 45.40 and 45.60, 45.60 to 4,600, as we are, the issue is at those current levels, there is no certainty that there will be a continuation to the upside, or at least it's going to be by a few points. So let's say we do get above 4,500, we have that 20-point leeway to the upside. But again, if we fail to get above this previous point of 45.17, 45.20, where's the certainty that the move is going to continue higher, right? You don't have that. Same thing downside. Same thing downside. Let's say again we break below 4,400 again, and you want to target 30 points to the downside towards 47.30. You can, but you don't know if you're going to stop at 43.90. You don't have that certainty. Or at least if you do come down to 43.70, let's see, you're risking 20 points to make 30. The risk to reward ratio is kind of off there. I mean, the true move to the downside would probably be a break below 43.70. If that hourly can close below it and stay below it, maybe retest it. Okay, you can short down for a healthy size of a trade down to 43.25, that would be maybe more worth it. But again, everything in between, it's funny. It's funny how it's all looping together. You just see how, how I was saying, you don't have these certainties in between these time frames. And earlier, just as I was saying, I thought, we have a clear shot of going long above 4,500. I'm actually going to retract that statement because now it got me thinking, you got 45.20, you got 45.40, you got 45.60, 45, yeah, 45.60, then 4600. These little levels where, again, if you can scalp it, go for it. But if you want a decent directional move, I mean, it doesn't look like it's going to be in between any of these levels. If anything, if we can get above 4500 and hold it, that just gives me confidence that, maybe we can hold this area. Maybe we'll knock at 4630 again, and then we'll take it from there. Again, above 4630, I would love. Let me pull this up on the 2-year daily. Above 4630, I would love to target 4700, 4710 as the first target to the upside. It was the first previous all-time high back then. So that would be the upside move. So very funny money area here. Again, the channel, the big picture, unless we're below 4327 or above 4630, nothing really happened in the market. The market's not crashing, the market's not soaring. If anything, it's all mania that's driving price here. And again, if we break it down on the smaller time frames, like the 4 hour and the 1 hour, the sand in the line, I guess the middleman between 43.25 and 46.30, the middleman is going to be 4,500. If we can get above and hold above 4,500, we may get another attempt at knocking at 46.30. But again, it's the same as saying, oh, when we're going to break 43.25, we're going to short down to 4,200. We don't have that certainty yet. Not yet. So when we cross that road, we'll go over it. But that's kind of my thought process here as I'm looking at these levels and as I'm experiencing these swings. So let's see. Moving on to NQ, and we're going to do the same thing. I'm probably going to clear the drawing set as well. Right. Okay, so is this 2-year daily? Yep. Okay, let's clear drawing set. Yep. Perfect. Okay, so let's start with our all-time high and the main pivot levels that we're basically kind of in between. So it's these previous higher lows that stick out to me, and that level is going to be at 15,255. I mean, last week I was saying 15,265. Let me just keep it at 15,265. Potato, potato. It's never going to be perfect, but let me at least be consistent. 15,265 is that pivot level, and then we have this level here that is essentially holding up this move to the upside entirely, which is at 13,750. Let me adjust that as well. Okay. Now, similarly, you might be thinking, well, is 15,471 the middleman to 4,500 on ES? And I would not say that. I wouldn't actually it is. Actually it is. I'm sorry, I'm getting thrown off here. Let me make this a different color as well so I don't get thrown off. And then I'm sorry, what am I fucking doing? Let me keep this. This is what I wanted to do. 15,500 is the equivalent of 4,500 on ES, and that's what we're gonna make yellow. There we go. That's going to be our standing line level. And once I start breaking this down again on the smaller time frame, you'll see what I'm talking about and why I chose this area here. Before we do that, since we are below the pivot level of 15,265, let's take a look at what we have going on to the downside. Now, last week or 2 weeks ago was we touched up on 14.7 and we kind of even flushed down to 14.600 before we wicked off the 100 close to the 100-day EMA, and we started to bounce back up towards this pivot level of 15.265. Can't break, looks like. Again, maybe we head back down lower. We are above the previous higher low. We're above 15,000 right now. See, this is a very funny money area because look, the big picture, in all honesty, because of the way that price action kind of formed itself out here and the fact that we did essentially close below 14,850, the previous higher low. Yeah, previous higher low, because we closed below that. Technically, this was the retest for the breakdown, and we technically should continue lower, but we're still kind of hanging around here, and these are the levels of my concern. First, 14.7. Next, 14.850, and then this higher low right here, which was at, it was at 1550 if I remember last time. Around that area there. Let me just adjust it so it's cleaner. 1550. Okay, now it does look a little bit messy, but again, once we start breaking this down to the lower time frames, you'll see how it all comes together. Now, 14,850 right now essentially is holding price up. If we break below 14,850, okay, we're definitely coming down to 14.7 as the first support, right? It gives us a green light as long as we're below 15,265. Technically, it gives us a green light to make our way down to 13,750 over time. But again, things might change. We might bounce out of that area. I'm not holding on to that idea, but just something I'm keeping in mind because we're essentially in the void right now. We're really between 14,700, right, and 15,500. So if we go below 14,700, we have a green light to short down to not even 14.6 as the first target, but you can ultimately get the green light to short down to 14,300 easily, I think, because you have this base support, which I think is interesting why we decided to come up, make higher highs over here at 14,550, retrace down to here to 14,300. We solidified this area. Seems like we had good supply here, and we were able to bounce out of here, making new higher highs and ultimately heading towards 16K. So below 14.7, that's definitely going to give us room down to 14,300, and then below 14,300, we're going to be making our way down to 13,750. Until we get below 14,300, I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna say this is a short just yet. Not really, really 14,700 I would say. Below 14,700 we can start to short. I'd say that 14,700 might be the equivalent of 43.25 on ES. So jumping into kind of the intraday swings because we understand that we're really between 15,265 and 13,750. And then again, if we can get above 15,265, we have a little bit of resistance going on here. I would say more than anything, 15.5 is a psychological support resistance level similar to 4,500 on ES, but ES seems to have a little bit more supply and demand around that zone. So let's break this down to the 4 hour, get a better look at what's going on intraday. So the levels that we pointed out, which were the previous higher lows, is 14,850, this one right here. Let me probably, best to change the color so it stands out. We'll make it blue. The higher lows are blue. So 14,850 and 1550, these are our higher lows. Now, we narrowed it down. So yes, we're between really 14,700 on the intraday level because the big picture tells us something different. The big picture says we're between 13,750 and 15,265. But we know now, especially when we break down to the intraday, if we want direction, we're gonna have to get above few of the supply and demand zones that we formed on the intraday. So 15,265 right here, you can see that in the current channel that we're in, price kind of disregards it, kind of doesn't care about that level at all. I only have it up just in case because I feel like the previous higher lows, they do have some kind of supplement to it, and I feel like if we can manage to just get above it, hold above it, it should be able to serve us as a solid support because it has previous history on it. But again, the 4 hour is painting us a different picture right now. If we narrow it down to the now, we're really between 14,815 and 1550. So if we want to go any higher, above 1550, we can easily target 15,265, I think. Um, 1 second, yeah, I'm gonna have to break this down on the hourly to point this out. But again, above 1550, I would be looking at 15,265 on the 4 hour, and above 15,265, 15.5. Really, we wicked at 14. I mean, 15,480 around there. We wicked around around that level. But just to be safe, I like 15.5. It's that round psychological number. I feel like if we can get above and maintain above 15.5, first is going to come 15.6, then we're going to make our way up to 15.9 probably, and then above 15.9 we may attempt for to go for 16,000, and then we'll go from there. Again, similar to ES, as we're coming up to the upside, they're kind of, I can't say there's a certainty to the upside, so I'm going to be treading definitely very carefully between any of these levels on both ES and NQ, because you just don't have that certainty here. So again, currently still between 1550 and 14850. Now, let's say into Monday we start breaking down, we start coming down to 14850, and we make our way down below 14850. We're definitely going to come down to 14.7, and again below 14.7, if we can get an hourly close below that, maybe a retest of the breakdown, we should definitely have some room to continue down to 14.300 around this area here. You could see right here we have some supply. um, and that's to the downside. Upside, again, you don't have, the only certainty to the downside is if we can hold off breaking above 14.7, then yeah, for sure we're coming down to 14.3. But everything again here, I mean, doesn't it just feel like it's all clouded and it's all bunched up together? That's the feeling that I get when I'm looking at it, and because of that, it's kind of deterring me from trying to make any moves in between here. Again, I do have to bring this out because there's no wrong or right way to trade. If you can scalp this, absolutely go for it. You can, but not my cup of tea. So I'm gonna sit back from that. And I think what I'm really gonna wait for is not even 15,265 to break. Maybe, you know what? This isn't bad. How about this, guys? You have a previous point here that serves as some kind of supply, right? It's at 15,335, if I remember last time. I think the hourly would show us better. So let me go ahead and break this down to the hourly, but I just want to point out this level right here, right? 15,335. Keep that in mind. I'm going to break this down to the 1 hour. Okay, so yeah. So above 15,265, we have an idea that yes, we're above the pivot point and maybe we get some juice, but I think a green light would be to go long possibly above 15,335, and you can definitely, you know what? You know what? It's the inner thoughts talking to me right now. They're telling me not a good idea because you know what? This is what I did last week. I thought, I had a feeling that 15,265 might have not been solid enough. So I kind of waited for a breakout of 15,335, and when I went long, I should have took profits at 15.4, thinking that we're definitely going to be reaching 15.5, and that did not play out. We kind of stopped short at 15.419, started to sell back down. This is the area where I should have took profits. So you know what? Because of that experience, scratch the momentum play that I decided to jump on last week. It's just not worth it here. So I would say above ultimately 15.5. You can target 100 points to the upside to 15.6, and again, we're talking intraday. And then intraday, if you get above 15.6, a clean move, because above 15.6, you're definitely going to 15.9 at the minimum. At the minimum, you're going to 15.8 at the minimum because you have a gap to fill right here. So that would definitely be a good move. I would probably go long above 15.6, set a stop loss of maybe 50 to 100 points to the downside around 15.5 around this support, and then I would target 15.9. That would be a cleaner play to the upside, and I definitely I think I would favor this move here above 15.6 ultimately over a breakout of 4,500 and then trying to target 45.50 because you don't have that certainty to the upside. So that's with NQ to the upside, and again to the downside, really below 14.7. That's the green light to short, but as long as we're above 14.850, that's fine. Even if we dip below 14.850 a little, that's kind of giving us a green light that yes, we could go down lower, but again, we're looking for certainty. You don't have that certainty of continuation even below 14.850 because look at 14.700 holding up as a supply zone. So let's see. Um, Last but not least, also, I do want to cover this really quick. VIX. VIX is not necessarily scary over here, not at all. Really, VIX is lodged between the channel of 1733 and 1550 right here, 1554, potato. You can see by Friday's close, we ended up bouncing off of it. But all of last week, I mean, we've just been going up, I mean, down, up, down, up, and that's been kind of dictating the intraday swings. And again, let's see. I think that if we get below 1550 ultimately on the VIX, we fill the gap down here because we have a gap to fill down here. Um, to 15, yeah, we should have enough room to head to the upside. And then let's see, we have support at 1450. Is this gap filled? And then we have a gap to fill down to 14. I know my VIX chart is a little messy, but 14 is going to be that next gap that we fill to the downside. So let's see if we finally break down out of this channel and get out of it, we should get a little bit of a squeeze to the upside. And again, if we start bouncing back up towards 17, probably we're going to see some selling pressure. But again, the fear really comes in. The fear is really to come in above this level here, 1996, but it's really 20. If the VIX starts trading above 20, okay, most likely you have confidence to short the rips back down, and you're definitely going to be looking for shorting opportunities. But we're not there. So again, I guess the market's just trying to digest and figure out what it wants to do. We got to be a little bit more patient. This is a very, very, very tedious zone that we're in on both ES and NQ. So until either or gives, I mean, what can we really do here? You can attempt to take those scalps in between intraday, but I'm going to be sitting out. So if I'm going to be a little bit quiet, it's probably because I'm sitting out of those. I'm waiting for a clearer move, either below 43.25 or above 46.30 on ES, and then on NQ, either I want us to be above 15.6. Oops. I want us to be either above 15.6 and then we target 15.9, or ultimately the cleaner one would be 14.7 and then you could target 14.3. Everything in between, I mean, you just don't have that certainty. And on a side note, this kind of looks like a head and shoulders, right? We have the left shoulder here, we have the head, the right shoulder's forming, and I guess the neckline ultimately is going to be 14,700. So if we break below the neckline, I mean, it's a flush. It's probably going to come down to 14.3, and then if 14.3 doesn't hold, which technically it shouldn't at that point, we're going to be visiting, the 14,000 to 13,750. But that's, what if? That's hypothetical stuff. So other than that, I mean, that's all she wrote. That's all we're kind of eyeing for ES and NQ, keeping an eye on the VIX, and we'll see what we get into the week. Have a solid and happy trading week, and we'll catch you during the week. Cheers.